From being one of the best stars in Hollywood to losing over half her viewership. This is why everyone hates Ellen DeGeneres. A lot of you are aware of how she had a remarkable journey to success as a prominent advocate for LGBTQ+ rights in the entertainment industry, along with being the most talked about personality in Hollywood. Her sarcasm, wittiness, talent, and sense of humor were what people adored the most about her. Stay tuned to find out how all of these personality traits backfired harder than ever. But for now, let's talk about the good she's done. Her self-titled show hit TV like a train, making it one of the best talk shows in history. The Ellen DeGeneres Show had it all: humor, heartwarming stories, interviews, hilarious moments, music, and tons of fun. The way she connected with her fans was something a lot of TV hosts couldn't pull off, and Ellen used this as a weapon for good. After starting her journey in philanthropy, where she supported various causes and individuals through acts of generosity, no wonder her surname is DeGeneres. Quite fitting, if you ask me. But between the fame and fortune, when did the cracks of who Ellen really is begin to show? Well, believe it or not, she was exposed as a huge bully back in 2020. Her employees revealed that she made sure their workspace was as toxic as ever and filled it with bullying, racism, and harassment. Former employees on set were too scared to say anything because Ellen herself encouraged the toxic behavior.
Toxic, phony, hypocrite, liar. That's what she is.
The producers would be uncomfortably close with the female staff and would often bully workers. Some employees were fired for taking sick leave, and racism was normalized on set. The worst part? Their boss, who's a huge advocate for equality, not only allowed all of this to happen, but was also accused of partaking in some of the hostility too. The so-called "be kind" lady isn't so kind after all, huh? But get this, not a single proper action was taken to address any of the issues. Apart from the harassment, unfair treatment, and firing of employees, racism, bullying, and Ellen's overall behavior, there are more reasons for people to absolutely despise this talk show host. As many of you may know, Ellen rose to fame in the 1980s, which gave her more than enough to make some very questionable friends. Cancellation by association is a valid thing, and looking at her track record, Ellen didn't have the best history of friends. These include former President George W. Bush, along with Kevin Hart, who's known for cracking a lot of insensitive jokes on matters that aren't really supposed to be joked about. She received a lot of backlash for sitting next to Bush at a football game and calling him her friend. Knowing Ellen's sexuality and the kind of people that support her, this was a huge slap in the face for the fans. Why? Well, just take a look at the former president's political stance and Hart's homophobic tweets. The same tweets that Ellen defended. You wouldn't call them the most liberal of people now, would you? To say she was tone-deaf and betrayed her fans would be an understatement, because she did much worse things, especially during the 2020 pandemic. You remember the one, right? The part where the entire world was silent, people were dying, and everyone feared for their lives because a deadly virus was infecting the earth, as if we were in a post-apocalyptic world. Ellen thought that it'd be funny to joke about quarantine conditions and relate to the lonely and helpless feeling many of us faced during isolation. The only difference, however, was that some of us were in our apartments and homes and probably worried about future finances and whatnot. Ellen, on the other hand, was chilling in her huge mansion that she bought with all the money she earned for being a celebrity. One of the highlights of this situation was wanting to sponsor a fan so that they could join her in isolation. Talk about being disconnected from your fan base. On top of her trying to relate the helplessness of being stuck inside your home, she compared it to being in jail with her wife, Portia de Rossi. It's one thing to be privileged, but making horrible jokes like that is what really took the cake for the Ellen fans out there. Want to know the wildest part? Her fans aren't the only ones who turned their backs on her, because some celebrities have also come clean about what they think of the host. Actor and comedian Brad Garrett threw a ton of shade on Twitter by retweeting Variety's article about the letter that Ellen wrote, in which she apologized to staff members who felt disrespected. Oh yeah, that happened, and I'll get to it in just a moment. Garrett retweeted the article and claimed to already know of more than one person on her set who was treated terribly by DeGeneres and the producers. Leah Thompson joined the hate wagon and seconded Garrett's claims that Ellen's behavior was common knowledge. Phoebe Bridgers tweeted just 2 words that read, "Ellen DeGenerate," which was more than enough for fans to decide what her experience with the host was like. Mariah Carey, yes, the Mariah Carey talked about her experience on the show in 2008. Ellen wanted to know if the singer was pregnant, but Mariah didn't want to give much information on the matter. What does Ellen do next? She suggests she drink champagne in front of a live audience, which really puts her on the spot. Carey suffered from a miscarriage shortly after the interview, whose clips resurfaced during Ellen's controversy. Details about her miscarriage were revealed later, with Mariah talking about her discomfort as a guest on the Ellen DeGeneres show. Apart from these stars, Ryan Felipe, Nikki Tutorials, and even Ellen's former DJ, Tony Okungboa, all came forward with the tyrannical host's mistreatment. Of course, there were a handful of celebrities who backed her up, telling everyone that Ellen was a wonderful and funny person with good intentions, but with all the employees talking about their experience on set, along with the resurfaced clips of old interviews. Which brings me to the question, was Ellen always like this, and were we too blind to see it? I mean, the mob of angry Twitter users bringing back old clips from her show, especially the one with Taylor Swift, is enough to give you an answer. So, with Ms. Taylor, what happened was that Ellen wanted to play a game in which she was supposed to guess all the men she had dated. Taylor was visibly upset and almost about to cry, and if there's one thing you don't want to do on the internet, it's make Taylor Swift fans mad. Even Emily Ratajkowski weighed in her thoughts, saying this is messed up, and Swift was literally begging her to stop. Take a look at this interview with Dakota Johnson, in which the two argue about whether or not Ellen was invited to her birthday party. It looks like her guests are growing tired of Ellen's snarky attitude, which constantly invades their privacy. Ellen's popularity began to decline in 2019, when viewership dropped by over 1 million. There was a 66% drop in average monthly searches, 600,000 YouTube subscribers lost, and show ratings went so low that it's just 1 year away from being parodied on SNL or Family Guy. As a means of damage control, Ellen issued an apology letter to her staff. In it, she expressed regret and took accountability for the reported issues in the workplace. She acknowledged how much of this was her responsibility, and failing to address it all was a very remorseful experience for her. She promised to change and make things right by taking accountability and emphasizing her intention to uphold the values of kindness and compassion, since that's her mantra. But everyone saw right through her and pointed out that the apology lacked direct acknowledgement of specific incidents or individuals involved. You see, this is similar to what Jimmy Fallon faced later in 2023, with mistreatment and abuse by the host himself. Ellen needed to be more specific with her apology, quote certain events, and apologize to the guests who she made feel uncomfortable on the show. This is why people perceived her statement as fake and insincere. After all, not many people support Ellen today. All those stats I quoted earlier weren't exaggerations, because she really did lose a lot of audience members, viewers, and fans. No wonder The Ellen Show ended back in 2022. After all that controversy and loss of interest by her fan base, she had no other option. What is she up to these days? Well, she wants to return to TV, but as a completely new person after just releasing a documentary called Saving the Gorillas, Ellen's Next Adventure. All I'm saying is that if history repeats itself, PETA is about to throw the biggest lawsuit we've ever seen. And so, from losing over half her viewership to being one of the best stars in Hollywood, that was why everyone hates Ellen DeGeneres.